From Cali to Tally, it's time to wake up. WarChant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source, and this is Wake Up War Chant. Now here's WarChant.com's Aslan Hudjavandi and Corey Clark.
Wake up! What up, everybody? It's showtime. It's Wake Up War Chant. Use the promo code WarChant30 to join WarChant.com. If you're not already a member, that'll get you a 30-day free trial. Tomorrow on the program, it will be Renegade Express. We take your questions, the loyal subscribers of WarChant.com. Post your questions over on the Tribal Council. We will read the questions. We'll try to answer them to the best of our ability. And if I can't answer them, surely Corey probably can, because Corey knows most everything. Corey, how are you?
I am good, buddy. I am good. I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, man. No pressure on you. Just, you got to be the coracle.
Right. Understood. Hey, that's how I live my life, my man.
All right. So we got a lot going on today's show. A couple things to talk about involving the Noles, obviously. It's part of the show. It's part of the format. We also we're going to Thrones It Around at the end of the show. Look always, folks, in the item description, podcast description of whatever app you use to download the show, because I will usually, I'd say like 98% of the time, I'll put in little timestamps to let you know if you want to hear this topic. It starts at the 7-minute mark. This is at the 30-minute mark. That way you can kind of pick and choose your spots if you don't want to, get the full experience, which I personally don't know why you wouldn't. But we're going to Thrones It Around at the end of the show. Corey had a really good sit-down interview with Mike Martin Jr., also known as Meat, to talk about the impending retirement of his father, his sort of stock or his interest in the job, and kind of how that's coming about. And we'll sprinkle that in towards the end of the show. Again, look at the item description. We'll give you the sort of timestamp for when it goes down. How was that interview, Corey? I mean, we'll talk about it obviously later, but that was pretty good stuff, I thought. Good job from you.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah, it was good. He's always been open and honest, and he's maybe 2 or 3 or 4 weeks away from this season being over, and then the pursuit of the head coaching job. So we thought it'd be a good time to sit down with him, kind of see what this what the weekend was like for him, his dad going through it all for one final time at home, and then kind of what this season has been like. And then obviously we talked a lot about what he would do if he got the job, how much he wants the job, why he's the best fit for the job, and so on and so forth.
All right, so yeah, stay tuned for that. That'll come on here later on the program. Let's get started with some football news and notes. Currently, several of ACC heavy hitters are at Amelia Island. Ira Schofel, our managing editor, is out there as well. He will be having an exclusive sit-down with David Coburn. Be sure you check out the website, warchant.com, for the latest on that. But on Tuesday, Willie Taggart sort of, I don't know if any of you say really make the rounds. I've never been to Amelia Island, but my understanding, Corey, is that it's just kind of people just sort of hanging out at the Ritz-Carlton, right? And you just kind of go up and, grab whoever you need, right?
Correct. So they'll have their meetings. Like the football coaches will have their meetings, then they'll break for either the day, like they're done, or they take a break for lunch or and then you just grab them out in the hallway, essentially. It's not planned typically. I feel like the one time I did go, they did try to kind of organize it a little bit to say, hey, we'll put the coaches in here just so you're not in the middle of a hallway in this fancy hotel. But no, it's not like you sit at a podium or anything. You just wait for the coaches to be done and then try to grab them. Same thing with the athletic directors or the commissioner and everything else.
All right. So Ira spoke to Willie Taggart. A couple of the topics that he hit on was the transfer portal, how that's sort of maybe not all it's cracked up to be for the student athlete. Ira's got more on that again over on the website. He did ask him about Xavier Peters or Xavier Peters, the 4-star defensive linebacker out of Ohio. He was a true freshman last year in 2018. He redshirted, did not play in the Garnet and Gold game because he was suspended. Didn't sound like anything too serious at the time. We still really don't even know the magnitude of it, but this past week, he apparently has gone ahead and put his name in the portal and is going to most likely follow through with it and transfer. When asked about it, Taggart told Ira nothing really specifically about why or, I guess any sort of backstory to it, but just sort of put a spin on it that they still feel they'll be good at that position moving forward. I guess that's like, whatever, the buck end or whatever they call it, the pass rush sort of guy in the linebacking core. But that's a guy I thought a lot of fans, for whatever reason, and we did not see him play one single down really of consequence this past season, but had really high hopes for. So I guess in that terms, it's a bummer, but again, it's not a lot of productivity that needs to be replaced, but never a good thing when a guy that you expect to maybe fill in the large shoes of Brian Burns won't likely be available.
Yeah, and he, we didn't get to watch much of practice in the spring, but when we did, he's a guy that kind of stood out a couple times, kind of makes those plays where, those flash plays, as I like to call them.
Yeah.
Where he just kind of flashes at you because of that speed. I mean, it looked like it was pretty elite, pretty special for a guy his size. But look, man, it's never, ever, ever a good sign when you are suspended in your first year. It almost, I'm sure there are examples of where it does work out, but that usually just doesn't. It's not a good sign. It's not a great harbinger of things to come when you get suspended 6 months into your first season on your first year on campus. So, I know he talked to a reporter and said that he wanted to be closer to home. He has a son, and I would never dismiss the importance of that. Heaven knows I'm traveling back and forth all the time to see mine. But he was also suspended, and he wasn't suspended because he had a son. So I don't think necessarily him moving closer to home is the sole reason. I think there was some stuff that he did or was not doing that did not have him in the good graces of Willie Taggart. And because Willie Taggart, even a couple of weeks after the Garden Gold game, when we asked for an update on Peter's status, said, yeah, well, he's still on the team, but he's still suspended. So it was serious. It wasn't just a 1 week suspension or, hey, you can't play in the spring game. It was about a month-long suspension and counting. So now he's no longer apparently on the roster. He's not going to be a part of the football program moving forward. And you have 5 scholarship defensive ends on the roster right now. Now you got a couple more coming in, but right now you're left with 5.
Not a very robust number at that position.
Well, nothing. When you look at it, unless Kando takes a jump, and he could. I mean, we talked about it on Seminole Headlines, but DeMarcus Walker took a big old jump between sophomore and junior year. It can't happen. So maybe that happens with Kando, but it's almost now where it has to. I think we kind of know what Janarius Robinson is. Solid, nothing spectacular, and there's a place for that certainly on a team that needs all the solid it can get, but I don't know how many special guys you have at that position. I think Peters at least had the look, athleticism-wise, to be kind of one of those special dudes, and he's no longer obviously an option.
Yeah, Taggart spoke quite glowingly about Peters before that suspension. I remember, every single day out there at spring, we're trying to figure out some sort of angle, or not angle, but just sort of what's going to be our focus for talking to Willie today? What do we want to get out of him for a story, for a column, or what have you? And a lot of it was defensive ends. And I remember asking him specifically about Briggs and Xavier Peters, and he just went right to Xavier Peters and just couldn't stop smiling about how, just how talented he is and how much of an impact he can be on the defense. So, not that Willie gives out praise, all the time, but for him to kind of, shine a spotlight on a kid who hadn't really played or produced and was going to factor into the plans is kind of a bummer for sure. I don't know where they're going to place that, and it just puts more scrutiny, obviously, on that position. To your point, though, I think it was Walker made the jump from junior to senior year, from 15 to 16.
No, it was both. His junior year, because remember, he almost left early after his junior year.
Yeah, at 15, he wasn't all that special. I mean, 16, he played like a madman.
Well, 16, he was a consensus All-American, but 15, he turned into a legitimate All-ACC type player, which he got lost. I mean, that 14 season, I'm like, man, this guy's a bust. Like, he's not going to be anything. That 15 season, I think he had like 10 or 11 sacks. Yeah. And then the 16 season, he became a wrecking ball that destroyed everything. He was the one really good player on that team, but I think 15 was compared to what he did in 14, he took a big leap from 14 to 15.
Yeah, it was crazy. The Florida State football Twitter retweeted, the ACC made a tweet about, I guess, players to watch for each school in the conference. And for FSU, they retweeted, there was 3 guys in this little video they made. And one of them was like, player to watch for 2019. One of them was Keyshawn Helton. I'm trying to find out who the other one. Trey McKitty, which is like, really? Trey McKitty's, I think, an extremely talented young man. I just don't know where he factors into this offense. But then they also pointed out Josh Kando. And, man, just, his highlights are, sacking Wake Forest and harassing, I think, a Sanford quarterback. But, yeah, it's not beyond the realm of possibility that he finds some sort of gear or taps into the vast potential that he has. But I'm not going to hold my breath on it.
Yeah, there's nothing really other than the fact that they play at Florida State and they play the same position that I would say, oh, he's definitely the second coming of DeMarcus Walker. Like, I'm just saying that we can't. DeMarcus Walker is good proof that you can't always give up on a guy.
You're right.
Even at that position after two so years. And I looked it up. So Walker in 14 had 38 tackles and 1 sack. 1 sack in 2014. That's crazy. The next year he had 56 tackles, 14 for loss, and 9 sacks. And then the next year he took an even bigger leap and went to 16 sacks.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he obviously made strides, and so it can happen. And heaven knows Kando looks the part, but it's there's not a lot of numbers there, and you can't count on a true freshman to come in and make a big difference. So again, I've said this before. I think they unless their defensive ends take a big step, and it could happen, they're gonna have to scheme their way into sacks. I don't think it's just, hey, 99, go show that crazy bend, get around that dude, and go rush the quarterback.
Yeah. We'll see, man. I'll keep the faith on him. Otherwise, E.J. Manuel announced his retirement from the NFL a few days ago as well. 4th most wins in Florida State history. 4 straight bowl game wins for him. He's actually the all-time leader in completion percentage. I didn't know that. 66.9%. But he joins a sort of, I don't know, not dubious distinction, but this is why I told you I needed a few minutes before we recorded today, because I wanted to add all these numbers up. 4 first-round draft pick quarterbacks that were under the tutelage of Jimbo Fisher. Jamarcus Russell, Christian Ponder, E.J. Manuel, Jameis Winston. Winston's the only one that's still in the league. Their combined win-loss totals are 48 wins, 84 losses, and 1 tie. Ponder, part of the tie. The quarterbacks have won 36% of the games they've started. Okay, that's their starts. They've all combined to throw 164 touchdowns and 133 picks. That's crazy. That 4 guys over the span of, what was Russell? That was 2007 draft? 2006.
I think it was the 08 draft. He was he's last year was 07, I think. I could be wrong. It's either 07 or 08.
Yeah, so I guess it really doesn't span generations or anything, but just the fact that, Jimbo hit these guys and got them to that level. And then they just, say what you want. I guess the jury, best case, the jury's still out on Jameis. But just, wow, yeah, just EJ joins that sort of, that player of Fisher's that just never really sort of amounted to what I don't know. I thought Ponder was actually going to work out and be a pretty good NFL draft pick. I didn't think he'd go first round. I was surprised when he went first round, but probably not as surprised I was when the Bills moved up to draft EJ. I thought that was always a bit of a reach, but it just kind of goes to show you just how talented he was, and just how good of a young man he was, really, because I think the word around EJ was that he just wowed everybody at the Senior Bowl. Like, everyone was just so impressed with the way that he handled himself and carried himself and his maturity that, he had all the makings of a franchise quarterback. 18 starts, he went 6-12 in those 18 starts, 20 touchdowns, 16 picks in his career. Good night, sweet prince.
Yeah, I think when it comes to especially him and Ponder, I think they were overdrafted, both of them. I don't think anybody, and I thought Christian Ponder was a very good college quarterback. I thought he was better than EJ in college.
Agreed.
But I also didn't think I think he was drafted like 9th or 11th, something nuts.
Yeah.
And I think even then I'm like, wow, they did what? Like that in EJ, I remember talking to Jimbo during spring practice of 13. So, yeah, Jameis was winning the job in 13. We talked about because the draft was coming up, and just kind of an off the record, kind of off the cuff. I don't even know if it was off the record, just kind of off the cuff. Hey, where are you hearing about EJ? And he goes, he'll definitely be a second round guy. They love him. He goes, I don't think he's a first round guy, but he'll be a second round guy. So even Jimbo was surprised how high EJ went. And I think what hurts both those guys is, man, it's hard to play quarterback in the NFL, number one, but it's also really hard when you've been overdrafted and people think the team's reached for you. which they both did, obviously. In hindsight, and I think the at the time, I think people thought those were odd decisions, and it just put so much pressure on, like what the kid with the Giants is about to go through. Holy moly, man!
Daniel Jones,
like,
yeah.
It's hard enough to be an NFL quarterback. It's hard enough to be an NFL first-round quarterback, but when the whole fan base is already angry that they drafted you that high, that can really kind of thwart your growth. And but I don't know if they ever would have been great college or great NFL quarterbacks. I thought both of them could be in the league for a decade just as backups, just because they're smart guys, they're good teammates. You could play them for 3 or 4 games at a time, and the quarterback got hurt. So I don't know what the situation is there and why that wasn't a viable option for either of them. I think Ponder's just at home now. Being a dad, which again, I'm not dismissing at all. That's awesome that he can do that. But I thought he would have a career in football. So yeah, I think, but when we look at EJ, so the NFL thing aside, yeah, he was a disappointment up there. Obviously you get drafted that high and you don't produce. It's not great. But in college, it was a really weird relationship Florida State fans had with him, I thought. Yeah. They were so excited in 09 and 10 when he'd get those moments to step in for Ponder when he got hurt. And then 11 and 12, he was just almost, I just think everybody kind of overlooked what he did, like took it for granted. He was a good college quarterback. Wasn't great. Of course, we saw greatness the next year after he left, but he was certainly really good. He was certainly as good as almost every quarterback of the dynasty era, but he was just kind of, I don't know, taken for granted a little bit. It was a weird relationship, but you said it. He had a all-time leader in completions percentage, 4th all-time in wins, won 4 straight bowl games. That's a really nice college career for that guy.
I mean, just goes to show you just how important it is to beat Florida, especially at home. I think part of that took some of the luster away from his overall sort of body of work, just losing to them, his senior season at home.
Yeah.
And also because, I think there was so much hype around him, and it's not fair, obviously, but that was like the first quarterback that Jimbo recruited as head football coach at Florida State. He inherited Ponder, but like EJ was the guy that he earmarked and groomed from day one. And then it was just kind of like, well, thought we'd see a little bit more. But I think to your point, when you do look at it from, 50 miles up in the air or whatever, 5,000 feet up in the air, that's probably a little bit better than 50 miles up in the air.
50 miles up in the air, are you in space?
Yeah, shoot, give it up I'd give up his, I'd take that production over what they've had the last few years under center, but that's neither here nor there. All right, so Corey, let's focus in on your great work this week and talking to Mike Martin Jr. again. Florida State will be taking on Louisville this weekend in Louisville, final regular season series of the season. I can't even talk right now, but you guys know what I'm talking about. It's the last series of the season for them, regular season-wise, then the ACC tournament up in Durham. I don't know where they stand right now. They need at least probably 2 wins, I would think. 4 would feel really nice. But he's obviously got a lot bigger fish to fry, I guess, right now than worrying about what's going to happen when this search comes to a head. But he's trying to get this team, obviously, into the postseason and keep his father's streaks intact. You sat down with him, a wide-ranging interview. Was there anything that surprised you or anything that, that caught your ear that you thought was impressive? I thought when you were asking him about, just kind of what he wants to change, it's crazy to think that he's got all these big, grand ideas that he wants to implement, and for whatever reason, he hasn't been able to implement them now. That was sort of my biggest takeaway from listening to the interview and reading the story you wrote on War Chant.
Well, it's such a different construct of a coaching staff. Obviously, you've got a legend, a guy that's been doing it for 4 decades. He's not out. He's just not out. Mike Martin Sr. is just not going to high school baseball games to watch a kid pitch in a semifinal series. He's just not getting on the road for 300 miles and doing that. It's just not happening. So it's a really interesting staff right now. Number one, there's a big debate in college, in college baseball circles about getting that extra paid assistant. Now they don't have one, so you only have 3 assistants. And Tyler Holt's a volunteer. They really do need probably 4, maybe 5 assistants, but anyway, 4 for sure. 4 coaches for total. So what's happened the last few years, really, well, 4 or 5 years. This was the point that resonated with me the most. Is it like he has to go on the road and recruit a ton because he's the lone guy that's out there wearing the Florida State gear. You got to be seen. You just have to be seen at these showcases that are on weekends, ball series, the big state championship series. You want to be seen a little bit. The guys that you're recruiting, you feel the love and all that. They want to see that you're there and that you care. But meantime, when he's out recruiting, who's doing all the developing on the field during practice? Because they have a team. So I think what he was getting at, I thought it was a really good point when he brought up, and he even said it, like, I hate to give credit to O'Sullivan, but what O'Sullivan went and got 2 assistants who were straight pro scout guys that can do it all. Like, if one's out on the road recruiting, well, that doesn't mean the pitchers just take the day off or don't get any good instruction. The other guy knows exactly the same thing and can teach the exact same thing and can also go on the road and recruit and can do just maximizing a coaching staff. I think is a really big deal to me because he knows what it's like to not be on a maximized coaching staff. And I thought, when you look at it, that kind of surprised me. I don't even think I asked him that much about change. He just kind of volunteered it. Like when I asked him, I just asked him if he was going to still be the hitting coach, if he got the head coaching job. And that's when he went to what I want to hire. I want to hire these baseball guys that can do it all. Like he's like, we already got an analytics guy, and that's Clyde Keller, but we also need on the field guys too. And just I thought that was pretty fascinating that he's definitely, when he gets interviewed and when he puts on his resume, his outlook and what he's looking to do and what he's looking to accomplish, obviously he wants to keep it going the Florida State way, quote unquote. But he also wants to modernize a little bit. He said he wants to recruit earlier, recruit faster, play faster, whatever that might mean in baseball. I don't know. Get in the batter's box, stay in the batter's box instead of getting out and adjusting your batting gloves. I'm not sure what that means, but he does want to do things differently. And I think that will be part of his selling point. I think obviously people see, he's been the assistant for 22 years. He's Mike Martin's son. He's just going to want to keep the status quo. And I think he makes it very apparent that no, he wants to keep the tradition and the history, obviously, in the Florida State culture. But that doesn't mean he doesn't want to, that some things don't need to be changed.
Also of note, tomorrow on the show Thursday when we do Renegade Express, we should also have our sit-down interview with Lonnie Alameda, head coach of the defending national champion Florida State softball team. We'll Thrones it around after this. Here now, Corey Clark, our very own, with assistant coach Mike Martin Jr.
So first off, I wanted to ask you, we talked about a little bit on Sunday about what it was like watching your dad the final time in that stadium. And we talked about Saturday night too and all the former players coming back. Has it hit, like, it didn't really hit me. I know it's hit you, but it hadn't really hit me until I was watching that video tribute on Sunday. Man, my whole life, Mike Martin has been the baseball coach at Florida State. Like, it's not going to be that way next year. Has it hit you yet just how, no matter what happens in your future, how much different your life is going to be starting in, 2 months?
Yeah, no, it hasn't hit me. There's too much work still to be done. We're focused on Louisville. I started driving last night to Atlanta, and all my stuff got canceled because the rain got up there, and I turned around and came back and looked at some film of Louisville last night. So to answer the question, no, I haven't. It hasn't sunk in, and I don't know exactly when it will, but again, we just got to keep plugging away.
You and I think, are basically the same age. I don't know. Do you remember life when he wasn't the head coach at Florida State?
A little bit.
3, 4?
No, he got the job. I remember vividly coming home, getting off the school bus, walking. I was probably, 100 yards from the house, and I heard my mom scream. And I just took off running. I didn't, I was 7 years old, 8 years old, and I thought something was wrong, but she was screaming, because he got the job. And, he had just called her, and, of course it was exciting then. But most of the stuff that I do remember is, yes, as him as a head coach.
So, obviously I don't know what his plans were in 1980 when he got that job. I can't imagine he thought, 40 years later I'll probably hang it up. It's just been an incredible run. It's hard, man. Like I have now. I have Brady. I have a 10-year-old son that I'm trying to be a good sports dad. I don't take the games that seriously, but I do want him to work hard when he's practicing. I do want him to concentrate, but he's 10, so I got to lay off a little bit. What was your relationship like with your dad when it came to the sports dad stuff? Like you growing up playing rec ball, and him. Did he take you to the backyard? Did he teach you the proper mechanics of the swing? Like what was that relationship like with him on that level?
Yeah, it was.
Did he get to see you play a lot?
Not much.
Yeah.
Not much at all. But when he did, after those ball games, it was, look, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it the right way.
Even at a young age?
Oh, yeah. And, I remember him saying, look, I ain't coming back and watching this if I'm going to watch you jog halfway to your position and then walk the rest of the way. I'd had a bad game. I was pouting. I was in Little League, and I specifically remember that, and just doing it the right way. Yes, whenever we got a free moment, we'd go out and work in the backyard. But most of it was, Mom bringing me here. I was born and raised in a dugout. And,
right.
Any chance we would get, with the guys helping out, he's busy, and we'd be down in the cages hitting with, guys that were in the mid-'80s, if you will.
Did you know early on that you wanted to follow in his footsteps? Was it after the major league dream died that you're like, I want to be a coach, or did you? When did it click with you?
Well, I was a crim major, and
right.
The plan was, when I walked away from baseball, that's a pretty good story. I was in Lancaster, California. I was 35 miles north of L.A. There was no cell phones. I knew I wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't playing. I said, this is a waste of time. I'm basically spending my own money to play because they don't pay you much at all. And I hung them up, told the manager, and got in my car, drove south on the Pacific Coast Highway, hit I-10. My fiance at the time was in Jacksonville, and I just started driving. Nobody knew I'd hung them up. Wasn't real intelligent. All I had was a gas card. Didn't have any cash, nothing. All I had was a gas card. So I drove.
You could buy snacks with the gas card.
That's exactly what I did.
Okay.
That's how I ate for 3 days. And stopped in where my buddy was in Phoenix, spent the night with him. Seth Bryzik was his name. He was a shortstop at Clemson. And he was hurt, and he was in extended spring training. Anyway, my next buddy, I didn't think about this until those days you don't think a whole lot. And I'm like, holy cow, my next buddy is not until Pascagoula, Mississippi. So I drove that whole way.
Got all of Texas.
He had a picture of me laying. He was at work by the time I got there. He had a picture of me. It was dead of summer. He took a picture of me when he got home from work at his apartment complex. I was laying underneath an oak tree in the shade in my underwear with a pillow.
Oh, boy.
Sleeping. I had slept in basically 20-something hours. And woke up the next day, drove to Jacksonville, saw her, spent some time, picked up the phone and called Dad. And I said, I got an interview lined up with the Secret Service over here in Jacksonville. First of all, he said, you quit. And I said, no, I retired. He goes, no, you quit. You can call it what you want to call it. You're right. So I said, all right, you win. I quit. But I'm interviewing with the Secret Service. So I interviewed with them. Didn't take long. As soon as they said you're going to be working counterfeit and fraud in Miami for the first 10 years, then you have an opportunity to possibly protect the president. I said, that ain't gonna work. I ain't going down there for 10 years. And so I picked up the phone. I called him. I said, hey, you lay next to my mom every night. I need a job. Give me a chance. And I was a volunteer assistant for 6 years, and the rest is history.
Yeah, with you though, and please don't take this the wrong way. You're 9 times a better ball player than I was, but you weren't a fantastic hitter in college.
That was a bad.
But you were a good hitter. You had one really good year. But when did it become like a passion of yours, the swing, and developing hitters? When did that become your passion?
Yeah,
How did that happen?
And it's an addiction. It really was, and it started because in professional baseball, they don't do anything. There's no coaching. There's no nothing. They're called managers. They manage people.
Right.
Well, that last year that I was playing, I wasn't playing a whole lot. I started being the hitting coach, if you will. Yeah, and I still run into some of those guys, and they, thank me because I wasn't good at it. So I was fascinated with, well, how does Barry Bonds do it? How does Tony Gwynn do it? Tony Gwynn, I was in the same organization. We used to follow him around and listen to him and watch the way he worked and what he was, his objective.
Why didn't you just do what he was doing?
Right. I tried. It didn't work out so good. But, I did. I literally became, addicted to it. And then, once the Secret Service thing was out the window, I said, this is what I want to do. And came back and we got it going. That 97 group was a good club. I didn't coach that group, but we lost everybody off that team. In 98, they said, oh, my gosh, we're going to be terrible. And, we had Jeremy Salazar, who was coming off a bad year, and center fielder, I just lost his name, Brian Cox, hit 180 the year before. I came in, I said, look, Levin, please let me have this thing. I've learned some stuff. Dwayne Espy was the guy in San Diego that became the guru, the first one basically that was looking at launch angle and swing plane and don't swing down and let's, get this thing on plane to the ball, not plane of the ground.
Right.
And I totally agree because every time I was watching guys that were successful, I'm like, they ain't swinging down. Everybody's being taught to swing down. These guys aren't swinging down.
And that was like the Charlie Lau, right? Like
Right.
Charlie Lau was the guy that taught George Brett to swing down on the ball.
Exactly.
Mostly.
And if you watch Brett, he doesn't swing down.
Right.
And so there was, Walt Reniak was another one.
Right.
People thought he was great. I actually worked with him for a weekend one time when I was in the Midwest League, and I was just doing what he was doing, and all I was doing was shanking every pitch that I swung at. And so Dwayne Espy was the first guy. And so I've been fascinated with it ever since, And generally when you're not good at something, but you really want to help people, the great ones that don't know how they do it, it's really hard for them to relate and to get through to kids.
But you hear that a lot about managers too, like great in basketball coaches. Like the great basketball players don't make great basketball coaches because Magic Johnson's like, hey man, why don't you just see the floor like I see the floor?
Right.
Or Bird's like, why don't you just shoot like it just doesn't work that way. With you though, when it came to coaching, did it click right away when you got here and when you got the full-time gig? Like, okay, I'm good at this. This is what I'm good at, and I have a passion for it.
Thank goodness the first year went well.
Right.
And the guys really bought in. I wouldn't let him pull the ball.
Did you think this was what you'd be doing though? Was your goal like I'm a coach now? It wasn't something you were just trying out or dabbling in.
No, I was all in. It wasn't that way until I realized how poor of a professional player I was. I thought I was going to make the big leagues and make a pile of money, and no, I didn't want to coach. But once I got into it, and we had a really good first. We ended up going to Omaha, and I think we won a couple out there. But those guys bought in, and then after that, it was 99 we could really hit.
Right.
2000 we went again. We were really good offensively then, and we kind of set the foundation of all right, this is going to be the new Seminole way. We're going to get into counts. We're going to hit the ball the opposite field. We're going to be really tough outs, and you combine that with the money ball that 11 had already instilled, and next thing you know, we had kind of got it rolling.
So I was thinking about it on the way over here, Meet. If you get the head coaching job, and obviously I'm on record, I think you should, I think you deserve it. But if that happens, would you have a hitting coach? Would you still be the hitting coach?
Yeah, what I would like to do, and I hate to admit that we can learn something from the guys south of us, but it would be more of a hybrid coaches. Guys that are baseball guys through and through, know how to recruit, can relate to players. The pitching coach got to go see such and such throw in Atlanta. Okay, well, we're practicing. Here's another guy that's just as good. Understands pitching. We're all going to be all hands on deck when it comes to recruiting, hitting, pitching, whatever the case may be, so that you can keep the program moving the way that it has to go. And I would like to hire a guy from the pro side to broaden the net, a knowledgeable, hardworking,
like a pro scout.
Correct.
Okay.
And because I think it's a good idea. These guys, pro guys, are out watching games all the time, and they're watching seniors, obviously. But holy cow, this sophomore or freshman is a really good player down here in Palm Beach. They have gotten the first call, because they do have two pro guys. They know all the pro scouts. So I think that's something that we should emulate, and I think it would work.
How hard, number one, so you're talking about kind of a developmental guy or just a guy that can do everything? It has connections, obviously, and can recruit, but also can develop if another
That's been on the field, right.
Yeah.
That's done it before. That's been on the field. Can throw BP, hit a
Right.
fungo, not just an analytical guy. We've already got one of those in the program, from the analytics side. I want a guy that, is can do anything, put on many different hats, and I want actually two of them. And how we go about that, I don't know, but I'd find somebody that would love this program as much as I do, and we'd keep on pushing.
When you started coaching, obviously you didn't know it was. We talked about it. You didn't know you were going to be doing it for this long, or that you even wanted to coach for a while. When did you realize, man, I wouldn't mind when the old man hangs it up? Sorry, your old man. I wasn't calling him an old man.
No, he is.
Well, he is, yeah, but I'm trying to be respectful. When he hangs it up, I want to take over this program.
Oh, gosh.
Has that been a decade in the making? Not that long? Longer than that?
Probably, 10 years. I enjoy what I do. I didn't set out to be, a coach. I wanted to play. Once I realized that wasn't going to happen, then I got into it and really enjoyed it. I have a lot of the same thoughts about, as a molder of men, as 11 does. It's satisfying when I've been 22 years. So now we got guys coming back with their families and alumni weekend, and that's satisfying. I'm a teacher at heart, and I think that's probably been roughly 10 or so years in which I said, you know what, I would like a shot at this thing because I'm different. I think I'm different in a lot of ways. I would tweak some things that I think would be beneficial for our program to keep us moving upward.
But I think what's interesting about you is that you would tweak some things, maybe modernize some things. I don't know. I'm not putting words in your mouth. I don't mean to. But at the heart of it, you're a guy that's been around this program literally your entire life. So who else would want to see this program win a national championship but the guy that's been around it literally since birth?
Right. It would mean more to me than anybody else. You're not going to find a candidate that's, would work harder, work smarter, care more about, this program. It's impossible to find somebody. Yes, that we would do certain things differently. I want to do a lot of things, faster.
Right.
I want to recruit faster, earlier. I want to play faster. I want to spend time and resources on the mental health side of kids. I think it's a real, I don't want to say epidemic, but it's real. And I think we can take that to another level than what we have been. It's important for those guys to be in a happy place, in a good place. And, being able to raise money, I want to be able to get out in front of people and, sell my vision and bring money into the program and turn around and put it right back in. When it comes to the mental side, the nutrition side, there's the things that I feel like we can do better.
Well, you're hired. I was thinking on Saturday watching the game, if you do get the job, how funny it's going to be, to me anyway, to see you out on the video board in between innings and visit Beef O'Brady's. Visit Lawn Care Auto.
Won't happen. There's not going to be no. If I get the job, there is nobody wants to see Mike Martin Jr. show. Plus, I don't have time for it. I will be doing other things.
Do you? I think people hear us talking, and I know we've talked on headlines and on Wake Up War Chant about how we think you're going to get the job. And I think a lot of people think it's a done deal. It's already happened. There's been a nudge or a little shoulder, like, "Hey, man."
Not true.
At all, right?
No, not at all. I haven't been told anything other than I got a phone call from one of the search committee members, and they asked if I had interest in the job, if I wanted. I said, obviously, hell yeah. But I haven't been told anything. There is no anything. There's no shenanigans or shadiness or none of that. I'm just like everybody else. I do need to get my resume in. I haven't done that yet, but had a few things on my plate late, so I'll get that turned in, and I'll do a bang-up job in the interview, and we'll see where it goes.
And last question, but talking about recruiting for this year and then recruiting for a couple years, 16, 17. Really, it's been an issue at least for 5 years. I'm sure you've been recruiting against it. Like, yes. Hey, he's going to retire. He's going to retire. You've had to tell kids. So there's been kids that have been committing to you and signing with you that haven't known for sure who their head coach is going to be throughout their career. What is that? How is that What challenges that? Because it's got to be an enormous challenge when you're recruiting against the likes of people you're recruiting against to have so much uncertainty about who's going to be leading the program.
Yeah, it has
like,
been
how
tough.
are you recruiting right now?
Yeah, it's been tough. And what I've told them is, look, yes, I get it. You don't know who's going to be coaching you. But at the same time, you look at the way people are jumping jobs and getting fired, and, you don't know, really and truly, son, you're only a sophomore anyway.
Right.
You don't know what's going to happen at whatever university. If you like what you're hearing, you like me, you like my personality, my philosophy on everything under the sun, then stay with me. Don't bet against me, and that's basically what I've told them. I want them to fall in love with this university that I love, and our program, the way we go about our business. And if you buy into that, you just hold tight. Either commit to me or just hold tight.
Right.
Because again, I'm going to go in and do everything I can to lead this program.
I'm sure you and your dad have talked about it. How often have you talked about it? Do you talk about it through the course of a season, like this season? Because it's hanging out there. Not just your future, but somebody's got to be the head coach of Florida State in 2020. We know who the two guys that are running the program, the two main guys running the program, hope it should be. But how often do you guys talk about it? How often have you talked about it?
I haven't spoken a word.
Really?
No, not one word. And he'll ask me if I turn my resume in, and I'll say no, I just got off the road. And he'll get on to me about that, but nothing is, shoot. The way this season's gone, we've got other issues that
Right.
need to be addressed. We haven't spoken a word about it.
But okay, so then how gratifying do you think it would be for him? And I know I'm trying to speak for him. You're speaking for him. If you got the job, because I think that would be a testament, in my opinion, to what you guys have accomplished together, obviously, over the last 2 decades.
Yeah, well, it'd be great until we lose a game.
Sure.
I'm not here, why are we losing a game? But I don't know. That's hard to say. I'm sure he would be excited. He gets to see his grandkids, and I don't even know how much he'd be around, really and truly. The way he doesn't like the limelight and distractions and things along those lines. It's a lot of, I don't know, how that whole thing would shape.
Has this been, obviously you want this thing to end in Game 2 in the championship series out in Omaha, but the year itself, with everything, not just him retiring, but then again, you're thinking about your future. You're a young guy, and I say that because we're about the same age, so I want to say that we're both young.
Yes. Debatable. Go ahead.
Right, sure. How has this? Are you ready for this year? Not to be over because you want to go accomplish things, but just to speed up so we see where we are. You see where you are. You see what the future holds. What kind of challenge has it been this season? It's got to be unique.
It's been a challenge,
unlike any other season you've been involved in.
It definitely has been a challenge, but I don't want it to speed up. I want these guys to, the cool thing about going to Omaha, and this is what we tell them all the time, is playing is something that every single kid that's picked up a glove, picked up a bat, they want to play in Omaha. There's something magical about it. When you go home, you're looked at by your homeboys. You're looked at differently. Man, you played in the College World Series. That is special. And that's what we want for every guy in this program, to be able to go home and be looked at a little bit differently, because it's that, need of an accomplishment and that much of a thrill. And, however long that takes, I don't care. I want it for these guys. They've been through a lot. They deserve it. I think that pulling out of what we've pulled out of, these guys they're resilient. They're tough. They've been through it. They're hardened. That's why we're not scared of anybody.
And you're able to compartmentalize and say, look, I know this is my future down the road, that I got to get my resume ready. I know I'm going to have an interview. I got to get prepared and all this and have all the things that I want to sell myself on. But at the same time, I'm 100% focused on this job and this team.
Yeah, I'm 100% focused.
Yeah.
There is no prepping.
Well, obviously, you said you haven't even sent the resume in yet because you've been doing this.
Right, and there's no prepping. This has been my life. It's all in this shallow brain of mine, but it's in there. I don't need to prep for it. I need to get it on paper and stuff like that. But they can walk in right now and interview me, and it's been ingrained in me. You know what I mean? What I want to change, what I want to do, and how we'd go about doing that.
I just thought of something. If you have a great run as the head coach, it's not that hard to add just a little junior to the field part of it.
No, I'm good on that.
You sure? It's like two letters in a period. Talking to you and your dad after the game on maybe Saturday and Sunday, that there is a pressure that comes with all the hoopla that's surrounded this season, right? Once they start losing a few games, like, oh man, are we going to be the team that doesn't get to the tournament in his last year? Yeah. You don't want him to think like that. I know he doesn't want him to think like that, but that's got to be part of the deal, right? Yeah. It's already hard enough, baseball. There's already a lot of internal pressure. To put the exterior pressure on top of it, it's pretty easy to see how you can go into a bit of a tailspin, right?
A lot of distractions. Yeah. Unavoidable distractions.
Not that he wants to. 11 certainly isn't about that. It doesn't bring that up at all, right? But they're 20-year-old kids.
Right. And it's a lot of the last, the last time. The last time we go to Jacksonville, the last time we go to Gainesville or Miami or Raleigh, there's all that. It's nonstop. It's been nonstop. And, it definitely doesn't help things. And then when you throw in, okay, oh my gosh, we're the first team that's ever lost, 6 out of 8 games, and first time we've been shut out by whoever, Jackson. Right. We've had a bunch of them, Stetson, Jack, whatever. Right. The first no hit, and so it does. It kind of snowballs on you. But again, like we've told them, look, we've come out of that. You can pull through anything. We're going to stick together. We're going to stay the course. We're going to keep pushing.
I think this is my last question, but do you think not many people get to work with their dad at all, much less whatever it's been, over 2 decades. Has that been good for your relationship?
No, absolutely not. We've had some doozies. We had one just the other day, but it's all in the name of winning. Mm-hmm. We both get it. We both love this place more than people can realize. And with that, the competitiveness and different philosophies on certain things, we've had some. I think, Tyler and, Clyde back in the day, and anybody that's come into this program that hasn't been on staff, that first time, they've all said the same thing. When we have our blowouts, wow, is it always like this? They all say the same thing. Do
y'all show it to the players, or is that more of a coaching
thing? It's in the hotel rooms during meetings. It's down in the coach's area. But yeah, you definitely, the players never see that. But it is funny that first time, they're like, you guys always like this? I said, yeah, that's why he's on one end of the locker room, I'm on the other end. That used to be my locker, but the more guys in between us, the better.
So no matter how this ends, I assume you're going to get. I mean, he's always been your dad. He always loves you. I get it. But I remember being out in Omaha on Father's Day 2 years ago. Y'all just lost LSU on that crazy 3-error play in the 8th inning. Not to bring up a bad memory.
Appreciate you.
But you weren't maybe in the most festive Father's Day type mood on that day because you're working. You're still there trying to win a championship. Do you think moving forward the relationship benefits from you guys being separated a little bit?
Oh yeah,
it becomes more father-son than.
The day that he goes back to dad, I think it'll change. I haven't called him dad in how many ever years, and that will be nice. It really will. As a dad myself, you wish that it wasn't that way, but it had to be that way. There's no getting around it. Yeah. This is big boy business, and we've done some good things together, and I do look forward to that day in which I can call him dad.
How do you? This is the last question, I promise. Say you do get the job, and I think you should get the job. I'm on record 1,000,000 times, but I'll keep saying it. How do you feel like? What will his presence be around your baseball team?
I don't know. I know he'll be around.
Yeah. But do you think he'll be like a guy that comes to every home game? Do you think he'll some practices? What do you think his role? What do you think? How is he going to end?
No, he'll be big game guy. I see him being Florida's in town.
Right. Sure.
He'll show up. One of those. I know he'll never go to Gainesville or Miami again.
Sure.
I don't know. The traveling part, I don't think he'd probably want to go. He may. Who knows? He may want to go, and obviously he'll be welcome to come around. But I see it more as, if I'm here, as the head coach, I think he'd be like kind of distance, kind of the godfatherly, watching. I'm sure there'll be some texts of, this guy, I don't like his ready position or things along those lines. I don't think you can ever take the coach out of him. But he's definitely not going to get in the way, and he dang sure don't want the limelight. I know his goal is to break 80, as he's 80.
Right.
And that'd be good for him. And I want him and Mom to travel. They never travel. They've never done anything. He's never been on a cruise ship. How about that? He's 75 years old. He's never been on a cruise.
That's the perfect time now.
Right.
He's in the sweet spot of his life.
Exactly. And I'm hoping that they do that. And, I don't even think Mom and they ever did their honeymoon because they were on their way for their honeymoon.
Yeah, they were here for their honeymoon. He said that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't think she's ever gotten her honeymoon.
Yeah.
Lord knows she deserves it.
Do you think you could break his record if you became the head coach? You think you get to like 2,100 wins?
No.
Would you even?
I mean, the over/under on my life's, my buddies is 52. And everybody's taking the under. I'll be dead at 52. So definitely won't make that.
So there you have it. Again, Corey sitting down, exclusive interview, one-on-one with Mike Martin Jr. Lots of good stuff to take away. Also, Corey added his own words, if you will, I guess. I don't know, how do you describe it? So when you write a story, we just listened to the entire interview that you pulled quotes from. What's the benefit of reading your story as well, Corey, after they've sat through and listened to the entire interview?
Well, because you get to see, it's my prose.
Yes.
Obviously, if you love the way I talk, you wouldn't believe how great I am as a writer. You crazy? Because I actually have time. This is all off the dome. This is all off the cuff. Like, I don't even think about what's coming out of my mouth, clearly. But when I'm writing, I at least take a few seconds before my fingers start working. So, that's basically it. Well, maybe a little more context of what he's about the situation and the season and all that. But basically, you just get my prose. And real quick, folks, before we Thrones It Out There, if we're going to stay on the Mike Martin Jr. subject for a second, that interview was all kinds of screwed up because of me. I think it was a good interview, but it had to be pieced together because I'm an idiot. I record with my phone, which everybody does now, essentially. It's 2019. But because I'm an idiot, I didn't put it in airplane mode. So right in the middle of him talking about trying to be the next head coach at Florida State, Stephanie calls. So that gets cut off. So then I'm like, I realized that as he's talking, no, this isn't being recorded. And so I start recording it, and I end up recording over what had already been recorded. So it was a long, dumb, awful process. Somehow I recorded over something that had already been. I didn't know I could do that. I didn't know that was why would they even make that an option on voice?
Seriously.
So anyway, we pieced it all together finally. It was in 3 parts, 3 different recordings it ended up being. And I emailed them all to Aslan, and Aslan, the great, as he is, the great producer, pieced it all together and made it a somewhat coherent interview. So good work, man.
Trying, man. Got to earn our keep. You know who's not earning their keep is D.B. Weiss and David Benioff, the executive producers of Game of Thrones. I feel really weird getting, you've been the one that's like, hey, I don't want to complain. The show's brought me so much joy for so long, and I'm the Johnny-come-lately. I've just parachuted in the last 3 months, so I really can't put myself in the frame of mind of someone who's watched this show for 8 years. But, man, they've got they got 80-something minutes to salvage this entire season because it's horrible. The episode last Sunday was just an absolute disaster.
Okay, here's the issue I would take with you. I think, and I guess I spliced them up. I differentiate. The narrative of the story wasn't great. Clearly, I don't like how some of the storylines ended. I don't like where some of this is going. Some of it doesn't even make sense. But the scope of the show, I mean, look what we take for granted now. Like there was some incredibly cinematic moments in that show.
Oh yeah.
Really, really, really well done. It's just that we're so involved in the characters that we just dismiss 30 minutes of dragon flying through the air, torching everything. And not that it was beautiful, but it was really well shot, in my opinion. And when Arya coming up in the ash, and I assume there was some symbolism there about 9/11. Maybe I'm reading too much into that, but it certainly reminded you of when the towers came crumbling down and what the streets looked like, and her face covered up like that. But I just thought it was there were some great cinematic moments in the show.
Yeah, tremendous, I'm not watching the show for that, though. I'm watching the show for the drama, for for the storyline.
Well,
None of
I
it makes
think
sense. What are they going to do?
I think that's kind of where they've taken that's the biggest problem I have. Maybe even more so. Well, no, not more so than some of the storylines, but that's really not what we love the show for. Is the Marvel Avengers 35-minute battle scenes?
Yeah.
That's just not what Game of Thrones has ever really been about. CGI and all that. That's not really what it was. Like they didn't even show. It was like Godzilla, man. They didn't even show the dragons for most of the first 2 or 3 seasons because they didn't have great CGI. They didn't have this huge budget. Now they got a gazillion-dollar budget, and it's like they're just showing off with it, as opposed to sticking maybe more to the character arc that has made the show so great. But again, just for the pure scope of what it was, I do give them kudos for that because that was really, really well done. I thought for one of it was in the daylight. Number one, we got to see it. That was a nice improvement on episode 2.
There you go.
But yeah, or episode 3, whatever that was. But yeah, I think by and large, a disappointing episode for a variety of reasons. But really, really fun to watch. Really, I don't know, not even fun to watch. Just they did a really good job. The cinematographer at least deserves credit.
Okay, well, there you go. There's his credit. Now the story, like everybody was bothered the week prior with the second dragon, Rhaegal, getting shot because it was like, hey, you're a dragon, you're in the air, you didn't see, ships on the horizon shooting arrows at you. And I didn't want to get too caught up in the minutia of like the physics and the geography and the reality, because again, it's a fantasy show to a large degree. But the fact that, the dragon, she went full steam at the Iron Fleet after Rhaegal died, but then backed out at the last second and sort of retreated 2 episodes ago. This last episode, she's just going full bore at everything. Like nothing can phase her. She's not scared of the arrows anymore. She's not afraid of anything, just kind of recklessly going at things. Burns the Golden Company, burns the Iron Fleet, burns all those crazy bows, the Scorpions, which, by the way, how did they make 8 of those when it took, Qyburn a whole season just to make 1? Like that sort of stuff kind of bothers me because there was where was the resistance in this sort of great battle? The fact that she snuck up from behind and because remember they closed the gates and then the Golden Company, the mercenaries that Cersei bought were out front and they were facing off with Jon Snow and the rest of the Unsullied, and then just kind of out of nowhere, the dragon, which is the equivalent of a 737 just flying down Monroe Street, just comes barreling through the back gate, torches that entire mercenary army, and it was like, well, how did that dragon make it, this huge dragon with its huge wingspan, how did it just fly through this bustling, crowded city and not, clip anything or make any sound? I don't know. That was ridiculous. How is the payoff on this show has given you such great epic revenge, right? Like the way that Ramsay finally dies. For a lot of people, I still thought they didn't do a good enough job, but the way that Arya kills, the family Frey, and just the way all the revenge is being doled out, and then we just get Cersei in the bottom of a basement with bricks falling on her. Like that's the one of the most hated villains in television history. Like that's she's just gonna die in the arms of her incestuous brother that she loves, and that's what we got. That's what we got. Arya's there to kill her, Corey. Arya that's gone through hell and back and fears nobody, has killed the Night King. All the Hound has to say is, hey, you don't want to be after revenge your whole life. Do you want to be like me? Don't do it, kid. And Arya's like, you know what, Hound, you're right. You're right. I'm not gonna follow through and kill Cersei. I'm out of here. Thank you so much. Good luck, Sandor. Just nothing matches up to what has been set up for the last 7 seasons. It's bizarre. It's absolutely bizarre.
Yeah, I really did. If they actually did die, that was I just hated that. Were we supposed to feel empathy for them when they were huddling together and the wall was crushing them? I wanted Cersei to get her head chopped off. So, if you're going to kill her anyway, it seems like you would want to do something that, I don't know, was more befitting of how she ruled than just almost getting off easy, like being in the arms of the one she loved. I mean, I know she didn't want to. She kept saying, "I don't want to die like this," but man, that's kind of that was my biggest problem. The whole thing with Jamie at the end, the whole 3-episode arc, completely
befuddled,
hobbled, handicapped the last 3 seasons of what he had done. Yeah. Like it just completely went against who he had become or who we thought he had become. And then all of a sudden, like I was hoping against hope, he's going there to kill her. No, not that. He was going there to rescue her.
Yeah.
And he has some sword fight with a guy that who cares? I wish they both would. I mean, they did both die, but I didn't care about that sword fight. I wouldn't root for one over the other. It's just odd.
And how does he live? How does he go on and live for another 36 minutes in the show after getting absolutely gored through the gut with a sword?
Man. Love was keeping him alive. Love was getting him to his sister, just to rescue her so she could have the walls crumble. The whole thing, she's sitting there watching. Like, obviously, you have to suspend some disbelief a little bit, seeing that we're watching a show about dragons. But why is she just standing there in the towers thinking that things are going to be okay? Like once she see the dragons unleashed and her old guy tells her, yeah, he burned the fleet too. And they've all laid down their arms like this is over. And she still thinks there's a chance they're going to win. It's just crazy. But yeah, so the big storylines obviously were Jamie and Cersei. Didn't like that. I did like the Mountain and the Hound.
Yes.
Thought that was a cool fight.
Oh, love you, Hound. You're the best.
Yeah, I liked it. But Daenerys, like, I think they should have set this up more.
Well, her losing her mind?
Yes. Like, you can't just say, it's in her blood because of the Mad King. Like, she has shown over the last few years that she's willing to do what she has to do to traitors, to people that betray her, obviously, to liberate cities. She crucified people, for crying out loud. So she's shown some anger. She's had some anger issues. But she's also somebody we've rooted for, the whole time. She was the heroine when the show started. And she's been the heroine throughout. And now this one season, really kind of out of nowhere, all of a sudden she turns into Cersei. Like, we're supposed to despise her. And it's like, well, what was all the goodwill that was built up for the last 6 years? We're supposed to be cheering for her. And then you just kind of cripple it. Man, I keep using these awful terms. You just kind of wash that away in one season and really in 2 episodes. You're like, what? She was there trying to save the world against the zombies. So she was a good person then, and then all of a sudden, out of the sky, one of her advisors gets her head cut off, and all of a sudden she starts torching children. That seemed to be a enormous leap with no real context as to why. Like, we have to infer, maybe she's just really heartbroken that she's lost 2 of her dragon kids. Oh, I get it. But we have to infer, or Jon Snow wouldn't sleep with her. But that doesn't explain somebody that's been so good for so long and liberated so many people would just then go torch children.
But she's done all of it to get the throne. Like, it really hasn't been altruistic. She sat there and smirked as her brother got killed in front of her. The only reason
her brother sold her to those people.
Well, still, man, come on, blood, man. The only reason she went to fight the army of the dead was because she wants to rule over. If the army of the dead wins, there's no kingdom to rule over. She knew she had to kill that, so she actually had a throne to sit on. So it wasn't, and also she was in love with Jon, and then she didn't, Jon's whole true parentage and all that and lineage didn't come out until, right before kickoff, if you will, of the Battle of Winterfell. So, we've seen her do things. We saw her the way she treated the Tarly family. She had both of them burned right in front. The way she kills Varys, obviously the way she saw Miss Andy killed, rattle her. So yeah, there's been crumbs laid that shows you that she's going to go crazy. Maybe
this went from 0 to 60 really quickly. Like,
it's crazy.
It's one thing to burn traitors or people that you think are against the throne. It's another to willingly torch innocent women and children. Yeah. For no other reason than what? To show that you can, because Jon wouldn't sleep with you? Like, I just kind of goes against who she's been for the show. I get it. I just think maybe it could have been set up a little more that she had some evil in her.
Yeah.
Because it's all been kind of explained away. Anytime she did an evil act, it was for not maybe a noble cause, but a cause you could understand. This seems straight up, let's just make her the devil. Because now we've got to show Jon Snow that he has to lead, otherwise the devil's in charge. I just thought it could have been maybe a little more subtle than burn a bunch of little children.
Yeah.
But hey, what are you going to do?
No, you're right. I mean, she did say in an episode, I don't want to be the queen of the ashes. And then here now she's burnt down the entire capital. I'm with you. I never, see, this is my thing. I never felt a great affinity for the whole Daenerys story angle. Like, I never read the books, obviously, so I was always puzzled because I feel like the first 3 seasons, the last shot of every season finale had something to do with her, involved like her. I think season 1 was her coming out of the fire with the dragons hatching. I don't remember the other. I mean, maybe the second season was her rescuing them and leaving Karth or whatever. But I was just like, who cares about this angle? Like, I never had this affinity for her and, her journey. I always cared about the Starks first and foremost. Like, I guess that's why I wasn't too bothered by, her sort of sudden turn of face with becoming a villain or whatever. It's crazy. There's certain people, I think there's a columnist for the Hollywood Reporter who is just like turning this into this is ruining the perception of women. Like all the great strides that women have made in cinema and film has now come crumbling down because of what Game of Thrones has done. Game of Thrones now has a women problem again because Dany lost her mind because she's upset, so she went off the handle, and that's playing into male stereotypes. I mean, it's bizarre, like how people take certain aspects of the show and try to apply it to other things in their life and then make a real big thing out of it. But yeah, I guess, so this sets things up for, obviously she's completely crazy and evil, and I still don't know who's going to be on her side. I mean, can even the Unsullied and what's left of the Dothraki, like, can you really support her? I guess maybe the Dothraki can because they're savages, but like, how can you have any consciousness and heart and be like, yeah, I'm still going to serve her, she's my queen, after what she did? And I don't know. I guess maybe to your point, that's the only way they could kind of pivot off of it and throw her off the throne, if you will, and have somebody else wind up on it. I don't know.
Yeah, I think, if they got notes from George R.R. Martin about the show and how he eventually wanted it to end, I assume he wanted it to kind of play out this way, where Daenerys gets the throne, but Jon Snow, who never wanted it, actually becomes the guy that everybody rallies behind because number one, it's in his lineage, but also he is a decent person. The fact that he didn't want the throne is the reason why he should be on the throne. It's not something he's aspired to. He would actually lead and not just want power. But I think in a book with 600 pages, you can set up the slow descent into madness more. Like, it just came so quickly to me.
Yeah. No, for everybody.
There were hints, sure, but a descent into madness. And the Unsullied will be with her because she freed them. So they're always loyal to her. But yeah, everybody else is going to be on Jon Snow's side. And now we're all rooting for Jon Snow against her, which I think probably is where it was going all along. I don't think the producers just kind of threw this at the wall. I think they got with George R.R. Martin, and he's like, yeah, this is where I always envisioned it going, is Daenerys and Jon Snow. Daenerys, and they battle for the throne at the end, and Jon Snow is the rightful heir. Otherwise, they wouldn't have had the whole thing with his lineage. So this is how it's supposed to play out. But over the course of like 2 more books, in 1,700 more pages, where it could be more, instead of rushing it into a 6-episode season. So that I think the story would have been, it's just been hurt tremendously by how quickly it's happened. Yeah. Also, Tyrion has turned into a complete idiot.
Yeah.
What I don't understand. Like, I just don't, he really thought then he's freeing his brother to go, like, why does Cersei get to go live out in peace on an island somewhere? He just saw her behead. I don't understand his line of thinking, unless because he's been so smart and so clever the whole show, and now he's turned into a complete dolt. He's given away his friends. He knew that he wasn't going to go to that wall and get her to talk her out of killing her, chopping the head off. So is his long play of somehow trying to get to the throne to make Daenerys look like the person that she is? Do you know what I mean? Like, is there any way at all that this is his play, is to try to get on the throne with Sansa?
It's crazy. I think there's betting odds out there, and I want to say I think Bran actually is supposed to be like a favorite on one of the websites or the sports books. That's
Bran, the kid in the wheelchair.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just out hanging out by the tree.
I know.
He's not doing anything. He's flying around like an owl.
The only way
that kid hadn't been a part. That has been the dumbest part of the show for years.
Three-eyed Raven.
I just in him, that kid, that actor. What in the world, man? Just the only use he had at all was to be a bait, and even then he was just going to sit there and let the guy stab him until Arya came out of nowhere. Just that part that never really paid off much. But maybe Tyrion is playing dumb. That's the only thing that almost would make sense at this point. Otherwise, he's done nothing but dumb things the whole time. Like, it seems like maybe he's trying to be a puppeteer, knowing that Daenerys and Cersei this is how it would play out. He wanted them to fight. He wanted them to battle. He wanted the city torched and for Cersei to die, but for Daenerys to do it like this so that she would be reviled. And then people would rise up, knock her off the throne, and then maybe he has a chance to actually to run King's Landing, or, I don't know. I don't even know if that's what he wants. Otherwise, it just makes no sense that he's just been a complete dolt after being so smart for, the last decade.
I guess that's the big problem, though. This whole season's been rushed, and now they have 82 minutes or something to tie up, Tyrion's true intentions. I mean, again, has he just been a complete dope the last, 7 episodes, or is there some method to his madness? They obviously have to wrap up. Is Daenerys pregnant? Does she have Jon's baby? What are they going to do to battle things out? What happens with Arya? Your ultimate heroine starts, she got that poor lady killed. It was like, we got to leave. We can't be in here. And then she runs her right into like a Dothraki horde, and the lady gets killed. Like, she's your awesome, everything hero, and she starts screwing up. They got to figure out what they're going to do with her story arc, I guess. Then you got the whole North with Sansa, like, hanging out there with Bran and whoever's left up in Winterfell. And they got to figure all that out in like 82 minutes. That's crazy. What I want to see happen, I don't know if it will happen, but with the fact that King's Landing is completely decimated now, just like that's going to be Armageddon. Like, that's going to be the site of the final sort of political battle. And then ultimately, if it's like Jon Snow that wins, Winterfell becomes the new capital of Westeros. Like, the political capital now, or the power source, the power center of that universe needs to be Winterfell, because there's nothing left in King's Landing now. It's blown to smithereens. And if it's going to be Jon Snow or Sansa, like, none of them really care about the throne per se. So who cares about the chair? It's always been about the throne, and now ultimately it's not going to be about it. But again, they have 82 minutes to figure this all out. I don't know how they do it, but we'll figure it out. We'll find out soon enough.
You think, like, why were the other two dragons so susceptible to just getting shot out of the sky? But, like, the Night King just threw one arrow at him, right, and he went down like in a heap. And then the other one, he got hit once and then just stayed there motionless while 3 or 4 others hit him.
Well, he was hurt.
The one she was on, how did he dodged it? Like, you'd think he's the best. Like, can you have, like, I know they were triplets, but can you have like a best dragon? Like, this is my main dragon. This is like my, like Jose Canseco had a twin brother who wasn't nearly as good.
Ozzy,
yeah. And Blake Griffin had a twin brother who wasn't like. Do you think that's at play here? Like, that dragons are built with certain, because it doesn't make sense otherwise that dragon was number one, when you saw how that dragon worked in King's Landing, that should have been the end of the battle with the zombies.
Yeah.
That dude was flying around for half an hour, just torching everything. But in the zombie war, he's sitting on a perch. And then it's foggy. Ooh, it's foggy. What bad visibility. Can't kill anything. So I don't. But then this dragon is like the best dragon apparently. So at least she saved the one that's the best. And what I'd see happening, maybe the dragon ends up choosing Jon Snow over her.
Okay. All
maybe
right.
Since they both can ride the dragon.
Yeah.
I rode the dragon a couple nights in college.
Hey-o.
Look out.
Oh, the only last thing I want to complain about, how did Tormund and Ed and, Beric Dondarrion, how did they live when the zombie dragon blew up the wall that's miles high in the air? Like, they lived to tell that story. But then again, Cersei dies beneath, like, the crypt of...
Well, we don't know, do we, necessarily that they're dead?
It
would seem like when you think about it, I think it's 50-50 that they're still alive. Because would you really have them, like, you wouldn't see them die? Like, we saw Ned Stark's head cut off. The Red Wedding, Joffrey, every single person we've cared about on this show, and I'm not saying we care about them because we like them, but just that had elicited emotions, they don't just die off screen. And I know we see them get crumpled upon, but we know enough movies to know that every now and again somebody the hand will come up through the rubble, and they'll be, oh, I'm okay, man, I just got a couple bruises. So maybe they didn't die because it would seem completely against the show's nature to not show their true deaths on camera, like to see their faces as they die. They even did it with what's his name, Euron. But they're going to have the two main characters, kind of the two characters that propelled the whole show into motion. They're just going to die under a bunch of rocks. I mean, I'm sure they're dead. I'm just spitballing, but you would think that those two actors too would be like, no, I want my death on camera. I want to say something profound before I die. I don't just want to get bludgeoned to death by some boulders. So who knows? I think there's a chance they're not actually dead.
All right, we'll see. All right, super long show is done. We'll be back tomorrow, Renegade Express, as well as an interview with head coach of the FSU softball defending national champions, Lonnie Alameda. He's Corey Maslin. Thanks so much for listening. Check out warchant.com for more.
Warchant.com is the ultimate inside source for FSU football and recruiting. And now you can get in on the action for free for an entire month. Warchant.com is offering a risk-free 30-day trial subscription. Get full access to the #1 website covering the Seminoles just by entering the promo code WARCHANT30. That's WARCHANT30. Sign up and get in on the world's most active FSU message boards. Receive breaking news, stories from our award-winning staff, plus get exclusive interviews and videos. Just enter the promo code WARCHANT30. Warchant.com, your ultimate Seminole sports source.